If you turn 65 this year, Old Age Security pays a maximum of $751.97 a month. That is the rate for the July to September quarter of 2026. On paper, it looks like grocery money. Now stretch that number across a real retirement. From 65 to 90, including the automatic 10% raise that lands at 75, that stream is worth roughly $239,000 in today's dollars. A couple with two full pensions is sitting on close to $478,000. And because OAS is indexed 4 times a year, inflation does not quietly shrink it the way it shrinks a fixed company pension. So you are not collecting a small monthly deposit. You are drawing down a $239,000 indexed asset 1 month at a time. Most Canadians manage it with less care than they manage a $30,000 car. That matters because the government has 2 separate ways of taking part of it back. Cross $95,323 of net income in 2026, and the recovery tax starts pulling 15 cents out of every dollar above that line. Keep climbing, and the entire check goes. Then there is the quieter one. If you collect the guaranteed income supplement, selling a few investments to fix a roof can erase your supplement for a full year. At 50 cents on the dollar, and nothing warns you before you place the trade. Most people search for how much is OAS in 2026. Fair question. The one that actually changes your income is how do I keep my OAS from being clawed back? Over the next few minutes, I want to walk you through 16 facts about OAS that never show up on the front page of a government website. Some of them will save you a few $100s. 1 or 2 could save you 5 figures. We start with the rule that catches people who plan on spending part of the year somewhere warm. It is called the 20-year rule, and it decides whether your check crosses the border with you or stops 6 months after you land. Start with the fact that surprises people most. OAS is not something you paid into. Pull out any pay stub from your working life, and you will find CPP deductions and nothing for OAS. It comes out of general tax revenue, and you earn it one way only, by living in Canada after the age of 18. A full pension takes 40 years of residency after 18. Fewer years, and you get a partial pension calculated in 40ths. So 25 years of residency pays you 25/40ths of the maximum, which at the current rate is about $470 a month. Then there is the travel rule. To keep OAS coming while you live outside Canada, you need at least 20 years of residency after 18. Clear that bar and the payments follow you anywhere in the world for life. Miss it, and your OAS stops at the end of the 6th month after the month you leave. Run the numbers. Say you lived in Canada for 15 years, retired, and moved to Mexico for the weather and the lower cost of living. Your $751.97 a month runs for 6 months and then stops. That is roughly $9,000 a year of guaranteed, indexed income switched off, and it does not restart until you move back. The mechanism behind it is a definition problem. There are 2 kinds of resident in this system, and they are not the same thing. CRA cares about residency for tax purposes, which is about ties, where your home is, where your family lives, where your bank accounts sit. Service Canada cares about residency for OAS purposes, which is about physical presence counted in years. You can pass one test and fail the other without ever realizing it. People assume that keeping a Canadian address and filing a Canadian return protects the pension. It does not, and clearing 20 years is not the end of it. OAS paid to a non-resident is hit with a 25% withholding tax before it ever reaches you. Tax treaties can cut that rate, sometimes to 15%, sometimes to nothing, depending on the country you move to. Same pension, same person, a very different net check, decided by which country is on your mailing address. That is one way the government reduces your OAS. The bigger one hits people who never leave the country at all. The guaranteed income supplement is the most misunderstood piece of the Canadian retirement system, and the misunderstanding is expensive. Everyone knows GIS is income tested, not asset tested. That part is true. You can hold a $500,000 non-registered investment account, a paid-off house, and a cottage, and still qualify for GIS, as long as your reported income stays low. Plenty of retirees plan around exactly that. Keep the portfolio quiet, live thin, collect the supplement. The problem shows up the first time you actually need the money. You sell $50,000 out of that portfolio to replace a roof, or to buy a used camper, or to help a kid with a down payment. Half of a capital gain is taxable in Canada. So if $20,000 of that sale is gain, $10,000 lands on your tax return as income. GIS is reduced by roughly 50 cents for every dollar of net income. That single sale cuts your supplement by about $5,000, and the timing makes it worse. GIS is recalculated every July using the previous calendar year's income. So you sell in March, feel perfectly fine for more than a year, and then 1 July your monthly deposit drops and stays down for 12 straight months. By the time you feel the cut, the money from the sale is long gone. That is the cliff effect. It is not a tax rate you can adjust for in the moment, because the bill arrives 16 months after the decision that caused it. I have watched this catch careful people. A couple sold a modest slice of a non-registered account to buy a used camper, thinking they were simply spending their own savings. The next July, their supplement dropped by more than the camper cost them to run for the whole year. Nothing they did was reckless. Nobody told them the sale carried a second price tag. The way around it is boring, and it works. Money coming out of a TFSA is invisible to this test. It is not income, it does not appear on your return, and it does not touch GIS or the OAS clawback. Cash sitting in a checking account behaves the same way. So the roof gets paid for out of the TFSA or the cash reserve, and the non-registered account stays exactly where it is. There is one small mercy built into the rules, and almost nobody knows about it. The first $5,000 of employment or self-employment income is exempt from the GIS calculation, and half of the next $10,000 is exempt as well. A part-time job is treated far more gently than a capital gain. Most people assume the opposite. If you are trying to work through cliff effects like this without accidentally giving up a benefit, subscribe to the channel. This is the math we spend our time on, so Canadian retirees stop getting tax surprised. The OAS recovery tax, which everyone just calls the clawback, starts at $95,323 of net world income for 2026. Above that line, you repay 15 cents of every additional dollar. Keep going, and OAS disappears completely somewhere around $155,109 if you are between 65 and 74. Put a real number on it. Net income of $115,323 puts you $20,000 over the line. At 15%, that is $3,000 clawed back across the year, which lands as roughly $250 a month off your deposit. Two details get missed constantly. The first is that it is net world income, not just Canadian income. A foreign pension, rent from a property overseas, all of it counts. The second is that the recovery is not a bill you get in the mail. It is withheld from your monthly OAS from July of one year through June of the next, based on the income you reported the year before. So a one-time spike, selling a rental property, taking a large RRSP withdrawal, winding up a business, follows you for a full 12 months after that return is filed. Which brings up the strategy people get wrong most often, the RRSP meltdown. The idea itself is sound. You draw RRSP money down in your 60s, while your income is low, so that your mandatory RRIF withdrawals at 72 and beyond stay smaller and stay under the clawback line. Sized properly, it works. Done aggressively, it backfires. If you pull $80,000 a year out of an RSP at 67 to empty it faster, You push yourself into a marginal rate north of 40% in most provinces, and you may cross $95,323 and trigger the very clawback you were trying to avoid. You paid 40 cents on the dollar today to dodge giving back 15 cents on the dollar later. That is not tax planning. That is prepaying at a worse rate and losing the sheltered growth on everything you pulled out early. The trade-off nobody prices properly is that compounding. $80,000 left inside the RRSP for another 8 years at a modest return is meaningfully more than $80,000 taxed at 40% today and reinvested in a taxable account where the growth gets taxed again every single year. There is a version of the meltdown that does work. It is small, steady, and it fills the lower tax brackets without crossing out of them. Most people either ignore the idea entirely or swing far too hard at it. And one more thing is quietly working against you. At 75, your OAS goes up automatically, and that raise can be the exact thing that pushes you over the line. At 75, OAS increases by 10%. Not because you applied for it, not because you asked. The month after your 75th birthday, the deposit simply changes on its own. At the current quarterly rate, that takes you from $751.97 a month to about $827.17. Call it $900 more over a year, and it keeps compounding with every quarterly indexation after that, because the increase is applied to the base amount. The reason it exists is straightforward enough. Costs do not flatten out in late retirement, they change shape. Prescriptions, dental work, hearing aids, home care, the slow shift from doing things yourself to paying somebody to do them for you. Provincial drug plans cover part of that, never all of it. The bump is a rough hedge against the spending that shows up after 75. Now the part that should change how you plan. Average life expectancy in Canada sits around 82. That number frightens people into claiming early, and it misleads them. Life expectancy at birth includes everyone who died young. If you have already reached 65, your remaining life expectancy is closer to 20 more years for a man and about 22 for a woman. Your realistic planning horizon is 85 to 87, not 82. So treat the bump as something you will most likely collect for a decade or more, not a lottery ticket. Then plan around the collision. RRIF minimum withdrawals climb every year you age. At 75, the minimum factor is 5.82%. A $600,000 RRIF forces $34,920 out that year, whether you need the money or not. Add CPP, add the OAS bump, add a workplace pension if you have one, and 75 is very often the year household income quietly peaks. That is the year the clawback threshold matters most. It is also the year almost nobody models when they are 65 and building the plan, which raises an obvious question. If the check is going to get clawed back anyway, should you have waited to start it at all? OAS cannot be started before 65. It can be delayed, and every month you wait adds 0.6% permanently, up to a maximum of 36% at age 70. Take the current numbers. Start at 65, and you receive $751.97 a month. Wait until 70, and the same pension pays about $1,022.68 a month, indexed from there for the rest of your life. Now stress test it, because the brochure version of that math leaves out half the picture. If you start at 65, you collect 60 monthly payments you would otherwise have skipped entirely. At $751.97 each, that is $45,118 in your hands by the time you turn 70. Waiting buys you an extra $270.71 a month. Divide what you gave up by what you now gain, and you need about 167 months to catch up. That is just under 14 years. Your break-even point lands a few months short of your 84th birthday. Before 84, taking it at 65 wins. After 84, waiting wins, and it keeps winning for every year you live beyond that. So the decision is not really a math problem. It is a question of which risk you would rather carry. If your parents lived into their 90s, your health is solid, and you have other income to bridge the gap from 65 to 70, deferral is the resilience path. It is longevity insurance you cannot outlive. If your health is uncertain, or you need the income now to stop drawing down savings, taking it at 65 is not a failure. For your situation, it may be the right answer. Two things should override that math entirely. If you qualify for GIS, do not defer. GIS is only paid to people who are actually receiving OAS. So every month you delay is a month of supplement you forfeit outright, and GIS is not increased for waiting. Deferring while you are GIS eligible is one of the most expensive mistakes available in this system. The other one is harder to say out loud. OAS dies with you. There is no survivor benefit, no death benefit, no estate value, nothing at all. CPP at least pays a small death benefit and a survivor's pension. OAS pays your estate zero. I have seen someone hold out until 70 to lock in the biggest possible check, and then not make it to 72. The family received nothing for those 5 years of waiting. That is not an argument against deferral. It is an argument for being honest with yourself about which risk you are actually insuring against. There is one more group this system treats differently, and it has nothing to do with when you claim. If you are single, this system is harder on you, and it is not your imagination. Compare two households. A couple brings in $180,000 a year between them. They split it evenly, $90,000 each, both sitting comfortably below $95,323. Neither of them gives back a single dollar of OAS. Now take a single retiree at $120,000. That is $24,677 over the line, so about $3,702 a year of OAS repaid. The couple has 50% more household income and pays no recovery tax at all. The single person has less money coming in and hands part of the pension back. Same rules applied to one income instead of two. Pension income splitting is what creates that gap. After 65, you can move up to half of eligible pension income, including RRIF withdrawals, onto a spouse's tax return. That one tool keeps both people under the threshold and lowers the household tax bill on top of it. It requires a spouse. There is no single person equivalent, and there is no plan to build one. That is worth saying plainly, because a lot of single retirees quietly assume they made a planning mistake somewhere. They did not. The threshold is applied per person, and one person cannot spread income across two returns no matter how carefully they plan. What you can control is which dollars show up as income in the first place. The TFSA is the closest thing to a clawback shield in the Canadian system. Withdrawals are not income, they never appear on your return, and they do not touch the $95,323 calculation or the GIS test. The 2026 contribution room is $7,000, and if you have never contributed and you were at least 18 in 2009, your cumulative room is roughly $109,000. So the practical move for a single retiree sitting near the line is to build a TFSA layer big enough to cover the years when a RRIF minimum pushes you over. You take the RRIF minimum because the rules force you to, then cover the rest of your spending from the TFSA instead of pulling extra taxable income. It does not fix the fairness gap. It keeps more of your OAS in your own account, which is the part you can actually do something about. 3 things worth doing, and none of them take long. First, log into your Service Canada account and look at the residency years on record. Do not guess at this. If you worked abroad, check whether Canada has a social security agreement with that country. There are more than 50 of them, and years spent in an agreement country can count toward the 20 you need to keep OAS while living overseas, and toward the 40 that gets you a full pension. People find missing years this way more often than you would expect. Second, run a pro forma tax return for the year you turn 72. Take the RRIF minimum you will be forced to withdraw, add CPP, add OAS with the 75 bump if it applies by then, add any workplace pension and any non-registered income. See where that total lands against $95,323. If you are over, you still have years to reshape it, while reshaping it is cheap. If you find out at 72, most of your options have already closed. Third, if you are anywhere near the GIS line, stop funding your spending out of a non-registered account. Use the TFSA, use cash. Move the gains out of the picture before you need the money, not after. One last item that costs people real money. Most Canadians are automatically enrolled in OAS, but not everyone is. If you have not received an enrollment letter from Service Canada by the month after your 64th birthday, apply on your own. Retroactive payments only go back 11 months. Miss it for 2 years, and that first year is simply gone. You spent 40 years paying into this country. OAS is not charity, and it is not a bonus. It is part of what you built. The rules deciding how much of it you keep are not hidden exactly. They are just spread across a dozen government pages that nobody sits down and reads at 64. Now you know where they are. If you want more of the Canadian retirement system broken down like this, hit subscribe. There is a lot more of it worth knowing, ideally before the decisions get made for you.